Hey there, coin collectors. Today I'm revealing 10 Washington quarters that could make you serious money. Some of these are worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. And the crazy part, they might be sitting in your change jar right now. Let's jump right in.
Hey coin collectors and treasure hunters, welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting an incredible journey through 10 Washington quarters that could be hiding in your pocket change right now. And trust me, some of these are worth way more than 25 cents. Let's kick things off with the 1965 Washington quarter. Now you might be thinking, 1965, that's just a regular quarter, right? Well, hold on. This coin marks one of the biggest changes in American coin history. Before 1965, quarters were made with 90% silver. But in 1964, the U.S. Mint faced a huge problem. Silver prices were skyrocketing. People were hoarding coins because the silver inside was worth more than the coin itself. Vending machines were running empty. Banks couldn't keep quarters in stock. It was chaos. So what did the government do? They made a dramatic change. Starting in 1965, they switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. No more silver. This new sandwich design had a pure copper core with nickel plating on both sides. And here's the kicker. They removed the mint mark entirely for the first time since 1938. Why remove the mint mark? The U.S. Mint wanted to discourage hoarding. They thought if people couldn't tell where a coin came from, they'd be less likely to collect it. Spoiler alert, that didn't work. Now most 1965 quarters are worth face value. But there are exceptions. Some 1965 quarters were accidentally struck on silver planchets left over from 1964. These error coins are incredibly rare. We're talking maybe a handful known to exist. If you find one, you could be looking at thousands of dollars. How do you spot a silver 1965 quarter? First, check the edge. Silver quarters have a solid silver edge. Clad quarters show that copper core as a stripe. Second, weigh it. A silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. A clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams. That difference is small but measurable with a decent scale. Another thing to look for, double die errors. Some 1965 quarters show doubling on the word Liberty or the date. These aren't worth as much as the silver errors, but they can still fetch $50 to $100 in good condition. The 1965 quarter also has historical significance. It represents the end of an era. For 173 years, American coins had contained precious metals. The 1965 switch marked the beginning of modern coinage as we know it today. Production numbers were massive. The Philadelphia and Denver mints, though you can't tell which is which without a mint mark, produced over 1.8 billion quarters in 1965. They were trying to flood the market and ease the coin shortage. Condition matters a lot with common coins like this. A worn 1965 quarter in circulated condition, worth 25 cents, but an uncirculated specimen in MS-67 grade, that could sell for $30 to $50. Get it graded MS-68 and you're looking at several $100s. There's also a variety called the Type A and Type B reverse. The difference is subtle. It involves the position and style of some design elements. Most collectors don't worry about this unless they're building a comprehensive set. Here's a fun fact. John Flanagan designed the Washington quarter back in 1932. His design was supposed to be temporary, commemorating George Washington's 200th birthday, but it was so popular that it stuck around. In 1965, it was still going strong. So should you save your 1965 quarters? If they're in average circulated condition, probably not. But if you find one in exceptional shape, or if you have access to a scale and want to check for that rare silver error, it might be worth your time. The 1965 quarter teaches us an important lesson about coin collecting. Context matters. This coin represents a pivotal moment in American history. It's not just about metal and money. It's about economic policy, government decisions, and how society responds to change. As we move through this series, you'll see how each year tells its own story. Some quarters are valuable because they're rare, others because they have errors, and some, like the 1965, are significant because of what they represent. Before we wrap up this part, let me give you a quick action step. Go through your change jar tonight. Pull out any 1965 quarters you find. Check those edges. Look at the details. You never know what you might discover. In the next part, we're jumping ahead to 1966, another year without mint marks, but with its own unique characteristics and potential treasures. You won't want to miss it. If you're enjoying this series so far, smash that like button. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any parts. And drop a comment below. Have you ever found anything valuable in your pocket change? I read every single comment and I love hearing your stories.
The 1966 Washington Quarter continues the story we started with 1965. Remember how the U.S. Mint removed mint marks to discourage hoarding? Well, they kept that policy going in 1966. So just like 1965, these quarters have no mint mark regardless of where they were made. Production stayed high in 1966. The Philadelphia and Denver mints combined to produce over 821 million quarters. That's a huge number, which means these coins are still common today. But here's what makes 1966 interesting. The mint was still struggling with the transition from silver to clad coins. Quality control wasn't perfect. This means error coins from 1966 show up more often than you might expect. Let's talk about the most famous 1966 quarter error, the double die obverse. On some 1966 quarters, you can see clear doubling on "In God We Trust" and the date. With a magnifying glass, the letters look like they have a shadow. This happens when the die shifts slightly between strikes during the minting process. A 1966 double die quarter in decent condition can sell for $100 to $300. If it's in mint state condition, the price jumps even higher. Some examples have sold for over $1,000 at auction. Another error to watch for: off-center strikes. These happen when the blank planchet isn't properly aligned in the press. The design strikes partially off the coin, leaving a crescent of blank metal. The more off-center it is, while still showing the date, the more valuable it becomes. A 10% off-center strike might get you $20. A 50% off-center strike with a clear date, that could be worth several $100s. Here's something most people don't know. While 1966 quarters were supposed to be clad, there are rumors of a few silver planchets still making it through. These would be leftover blanks from 1964 production. Finding one would be like winning the lottery. We are talking potentially tens of thousands of dollars. How do you check? Same method as with the 1965. Look at the edge for that copper stripe. Weigh the coin. A clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. If you find one that looks silver and weighs heavy, get it authenticated immediately. Beyond errors, condition is everything with 1966 quarters. Most circulated examples are worth face value, but uncirculated coins are a different story. An MS-65 grade 1966 quarter might sell for $15 to $20. Get up to MS-67 and you're looking at $100 or more. The highest graded examples, MS-68, have sold for over $3,000. Why such a huge jump in value for high grades? Scarcity. Most 1966 quarters went straight into circulation. They got scratched, worn down, and damaged. Finding one in perfect condition is genuinely difficult. There's also what collectors call special mint sets from 1966. These were specially produced sets with higher quality strikes. They were sold to collectors. Quarters from these sets often have better luster and sharper details than regular strikes. They're worth more, but you need the original packaging to prove authenticity. Let's talk about varieties. The 1966 quarter has a few minor varieties that specialists care about. There's variation in the placement of certain design elements. The spacing between letters can differ slightly. For most collectors, these don't matter much, but if you're building a comprehensive collection, they're worth knowing about. Here's a practical tip. If you're searching through rolls of quarters, look for coins with unusual luster or color. Clad quarters that weren't properly mixed during production can have color variations. These aren't worth a fortune, but they're interesting and might fetch a small premium from the right collector. The 1966 quarter also has educational value. It helps us understand the transition period in American coinage. The Mint was learning how to produce these new clad coins efficiently. Early production runs had more issues. Later production improved. This evolution is visible if you know what to look for. One mistake beginners make: they see any imperfection and think it's valuable. Not all damage is an error. A coin that's been scratched, cleaned, or damaged after leaving the mint is just a damaged coin. True mint errors happen during production. They're consistent and reproducible across multiple examples. So what should you do if you find a 1966 quarter that looks unusual? First, research it. Compare it to images online. Check coin error databases. If you're still convinced it's special, consider getting it graded by PCGS or NGC. These professional grading services will authenticate it and assign a grade. Grading isn't free. It typically costs $20 to $40 per coin, so only send in coins you believe are worth more than the grading fee. A common circulated 1966 quarter isn't worth grading. A potential double die or high-grade uncirculated example, absolutely worth it. Here's something cool about the 1966 quarter. Even though millions were made, certain die varieties are genuinely scarce. Researchers are still discovering new varieties today. The hobby is constantly evolving. What seems common now might be recognized as rare tomorrow. Before I wrap up this part, let's do a quick recap. What makes a 1966 quarter valuable? Errors like doubled dies or off-center strikes. Exceptional condition, especially MS67 or higher, and the extremely rare possibility of a silver planchet error. In part 3, we're jumping to 1967, the last year without mint marks. That year has its own unique story and valuable varieties you need to know about. If you found this helpful, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of this series. And comment below, what's the oldest quarter you've ever found in circulation? I love reading your responses. What's up, coin hunters? Welcome back to the series. We're on part 3 now, and today we're talking about the 1967 Washington quarter. This is the last year the U.S. Mint produced quarters without mint marks, closing out a 3-year experiment that started in 1965. Why did they finally bring back mint marks in 1968? Because the strategy didn't work at all. People kept collecting coins anyway. The Mint realized they needed a better way to track production and manage inventory at different facilities. So 1967 marks the end of an era in American coinage. Let me start with production numbers because they're important. In 1967, the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced a combined 1.52 billion quarters. That's billion with a B. This massive production means 1967 quarters are everywhere. You probably have several in your change jar right now. They're incredibly common in all grades of circulated condition. But before you dismiss them as worthless, hold on. Just like 1965 and 1966, the 1967 quarter has errors and varieties that can be worth serious money to the right collectors. The most sought-after 1967 quarter error is the doubled die obverse. On these coins, you'll see clear doubling on the letters in Liberty, In God We Trust, and sometimes the date. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification. The doubling looks like a shadow or echo of the original strike. It's not wear or damage. It's an actual minting error. How much is a 1967 doubled die worth? In average circulated condition with visible wear, you're looking at $75 to $150. In uncirculated condition with sharp details, the value jumps to $200 to $400. The strongest examples with dramatic doubling have sold for over $800 at auction. The key is how obvious the doubling is and the overall grade. But there's something else special about 1967 that sets it apart. Some quarters show what's called a rotated reverse or rotated die error. This happens when the reverse die isn't properly aligned with the obverse die. When you flip the coin from top to bottom like normal, the back design is tilted at an angle instead of being perfectly upright. A slight rotation of 15 to 30 degrees isn't worth much, maybe $10 to $20. But a 45-degree rotation becomes interesting and can be worth $50 to $150 depending on condition. A full 180-degree rotation where the coin is upside down when you flip it. That's a significant error worth $300 or more to error collectors who specialize in this type of mistake. Now let's talk about condition and why it matters so much for common date coins. Most 1967 quarters in circulated condition are worth exactly 25 cents. You can spend them without losing money, but high-grade specimens tell a different story entirely. An MS-65 grade 1967 quarter with nice luster and minimal contact marks sells for $8 to $12. Not a fortune, but better than face value. An MS-66 brings $20 to $35. MS-67 specimens jump to $75 to $150. And here's where it gets exciting. The rare MS-68 examples have topped $2,000 at major auctions. Only a small handful have been graded that high by PCGS and NGC combined. Why such a huge premium for MS-68? Because finding a 1967 quarter in absolutely perfect condition is genuinely difficult. Think about it. These coins were made for circulation. They went straight into cash registers, vending machines, and people's pockets. They got banged around, scratched, and handled. Most collectors in 1967 weren't saving them because they seemed too common. So perfect examples are actually scarce today. There's another variety to watch for called the Type 1 and Type 2 reverse. The difference involves the details of the eagle on the back. Type 1 has slightly different feather details compared to Type 2. This is subtle stuff that only variety specialists really care about, but it's worth knowing if you're building a complete collection. Let me share a hunting strategy that works. If you're searching through rolls of quarters from the bank, don't just glance at dates. Actually examine each 1967 quarter you find. Look at the luster under good light. Check for doubling with magnification. Look at the edge to see if there's any chance it could be silver, though that's extremely unlikely for 1967. Here's something interesting about errors. The 1967 quarter also comes with off-center strikes, just like 1965 and 1966. These happen when the planchet isn't centered properly in the collar during striking. A 5% off-center strike isn't worth much extra, but 25% to 50% off-center with the date still visible, that's $50 to $200 depending on how dramatic it looks. There are also broad strike errors where the coin wasn't contained by the collar at all during striking. These coins come out larger in diameter than normal and have weird edges. They're worth $30 to $100 in most cases. Not a huge amount, but definitely worth saving if you find one. Let's talk about something most people don't consider: tunning. Some 1967 quarters that were stored in paper rolls or certain albums developed attractive rainbow tunning over the decades. If the tunning is natural and attractive, it can actually add value. Collectors who specialize in toned coins will pay premiums for eye-appealing examples. But if the tunning is ugly, dark, or spotty, it reduces value. Never clean a coin yourself. This is crucial advice. Cleaning always reduces value, even if you think you're making it look better. Professional grading services can tell when a coin has been cleaned, and they'll note it on the label, which kills the value. If you find a dirty 1967 quarter that might be valuable, leave it alone. Let the grading service or a potential buyer decide how to handle it. Here's a fun fact about the design. The reverse of the Washington quarter shows an eagle with wings spread, standing on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. This design represents America's readiness for war but preference for peace. John Flanagan created this design back in 1932, and it remained unchanged through 1967 and beyond until the state quarter program started in 1999. Now let's address a common question. Should you save every 1967 quarter you find? The honest answer is no. If it's a normal circulated coin with wear, just spend it. You're not losing anything. But if you find one that's uncirculated with nice luster, or if you spot any doubling or other errors, absolutely set it aside for further research. Storage matters if you're saving coins. Don't put them loose in a jar where they'll scratch each other. Use coin flips, holders, or albums designed for quarters. This prevents damage and preserves the condition, which directly affects value. Here's something that surprises people. Even though 1967 quarters are common, there's steady demand from collectors. Why? Because people are always building sets. New collectors enter the hobby every day. They need every date from 1965 forward to complete their albums. This creates consistent baseline demand. Special mint sets from 1967 also exist. These were produced with higher quality standards and sold directly to collectors. Coins from these sets have better strikes, sharper details, and fewer bag marks. They're worth more than regular circulation strikes, especially in high grades. If you have old coin sets from family members, check for 1967 special mint sets. Let me share a real-world example. Last year, a collector found a 1967 double die quarter in a roll from their bank. They paid $10 for the roll. That one coin graded MS64 and sold for $275 at auction. That's the kind of discovery that keeps people searching through pocket change and bank rolls. The 1967 quarter also teaches us about patience in collecting. This isn't a get-rich-quick hobby. You might search through hundreds of 1967 quarters before finding anything special. But when you do find that error or high-grade piece, it's exciting and potentially profitable. Online resources can help you learn more. Websites like PCGS Coin Facts and NGC Coin Explorer have detailed information about 1967 quarter varieties and values. They show actual auction results so you can see what real buyers are paying, not just what price guides claim. Before we finish this part, here's your action step. Tonight, go through your quarters and pull out every 1967 you find. Examine them under magnification. Look for doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. Check the reverse alignment by flipping the coin. You might discover something valuable that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. In Part 4, we're jumping ahead to 1973, skipping some years to focus on the most interesting dates. The 1973 quarter has some surprising varieties and errors that many collectors overlook. You won't want to miss it because there's serious money hiding in that year. If you're enjoying this series, hit that like button. It helps other coin collectors find these videos. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch every part of this 10-part series. And comment below, have you found any errors in your pocket change? I love hearing your success stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Part 4 where we dive into the 1973 Washington Quarter and its hidden treasures. We're on Part 4 of our 10-part series about valuable Washington quarters. In the last 3 parts, we covered 1965, 1966, and 1967, those transitional years without mint marks. Now we're jumping ahead to 1973, and this year has some seriously overlooked varieties that could be worth big money. The 1973 Washington Quarter marks a return to normalcy in American coinage. Mint marks are back and clearly visible. Production happened at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint produced coins with distinct characteristics and values. Let's break down the numbers. The Philadelphia Mint, which uses no mint mark, produced about 346 million quarters in 1973. The Denver Mint, marked with a small D below Washington's ponytail on the obverse, made roughly 232 million. And San Francisco, marked with an S, produced only proof coins for collectors, not circulation strikes. Now here's where things get interesting. The 1973 D quarter exists in 2 distinct types that most casual collectors don't even know about: Type A and Type B reverses. This is one of those insider secrets that can make you money if you know what to look for. What's the difference? It's all about the eagle's breast feathers on the reverse. Type A has weaker, less defined feather details. Type B shows sharper, more clearly defined feathers. You need decent magnification to see the difference clearly, but once you know what to look for, it becomes obvious. Why does this matter? Type B is significantly scarcer than Type A, a regular 1973D type. A quarter in circulated condition is worth face value. But a 1973D Type B in MS65 condition can sell for $50 to $100. Get it up to MS66 or MS67, and you're looking at $150 to $300 or more. Some MS67 examples have topped $500 at auction. How do you tell them apart? Look at the eagle's breast area with a magnifying glass or loupe. On Type A, the feather lines are thin and fade out. On Type B, they're bold, thick, and complete. There are detailed comparison photos online that can help you learn the difference. It takes practice, but it's worth learning. Now let's talk about double dyes, because 1973 has some good ones. The 1973D double dye obverse is the most famous. Look at the word Liberty with magnification. On true double dye examples, you'll see clear separation and doubling on the letters. It looks like the letters have a distinct shadow. A 1973D double dye obverse in circulated condition sells for $75 to $150. In uncirculated grades, the value jumps to $200 to $400. The strongest, most dramatic examples in high grades have sold for over $600. The key is how obvious the doubling appears and the overall condition of the coin. There's also a 1973 Philadelphia double dye, though it's less common and less well known. Same thing to look for, doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. These are worth similar amounts to the Denver version, maybe slightly more because fewer people know about them. Let me talk about the 1973 S-Proof quarter for a moment. These were made specifically for collectors in special proof sets. They have mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs. Most are worth $3 to $5 in standard PR65 to PR67 grades. But here's the thing, high-grade proofs in PR69 or the rare PR70 grade can sell for $50 to $200 or more. Proofs also come with their own errors. Some 1973 S-proofs show doubling or other minting mistakes. A proof with a clear error is worth substantially more than a regular proof. I've seen 1973 S double dye proofs sell for $300 to $500. Now let's discuss regular circulation strikes and their values by grade. A typical worn 1973P or 1973D quarter is worth 25 cents. Nothing special there, but condition matters tremendously for common dates. An MS64 1973P quarter sells for $5 to $8. MS65 brings $12 to $20. MS66 jumps to $35 to $60. And MS67 examples can hit $100 to $200. The rare MS68 specimens have sold for over $1,000 because they're genuinely scarce at that preservation level. The 1973D follows similar patterns, with slightly higher values for Type B varieties at each grade level. This is why knowing your varieties matters. It can literally double or triple the value of what seems like a common coin. Let's talk about errors beyond double dyes. The 1973 quarter comes with various striking errors that add value. Off-center strikes are the most common error type. A 10% to 20% off-center strike with the date visible sells for $25 to $50. A 40% to 50% off-center strike can bring $100 to $200 or more. Broad strike errors also exist for 1973. These happen when the coin isn't properly contained during striking, so it spreads out larger than normal diameter. The edge looks weird and expanded. These sell for $30 to $80 depending on how dramatic the error is and the overall condition. There are also clipped planchet errors where part of the blank is missing before striking. It looks like someone took a bite out of the coin. Small clips aren't worth much, maybe $10 to $20. But large clips taking out 20% or more of the coin can be worth $50 to $150, especially if the clip is curved and dramatic. Here's something most people overlook: die cracks and die breaks. As dies wear out from striking thousands of coins, they develop cracks. These appear as raised lines on the finished coin. Minor die cracks aren't worth much, but major die breaks, especially cud errors where a chunk of the die breaks off, can add significant value. A nice cud error on a 1973 quarter might sell for $30 to $100. Let me share a hunting strategy. If you're going through rolls looking for 1973 quarters, separate them by mint mark first. Put all the Denver coins in one pile. Then examine each Denver quarter carefully with magnification to determine if it's type A or type B. This takes time, but finding even one type B in high grade makes it worthwhile. For Philadelphia coins, focus on looking for doubled dies. Check Liberty carefully under magnification. Look at In God We Trust. Check the date. These are the areas where doubling most commonly appears on 1973 quarters. Storage is crucial if you find something valuable. Don't put potential key coins loose with other coins where they'll get scratched. Use individual flips or holders. For raw coins you think might grade well, consider 2x2 cardboard holders or non-PVC plastic flips. This preserves the surface and eye appeal. Here's a real story. A collector I know bought a bag of 1973 D quarters from a coin show for $20, just bulk circulated coins. He went through them looking for Type B varieties. He found 3 Type B coins, 2 graded MS64 and 1 graded MS66. The MS66 alone sold for $180. That's turning $20 into nearly $300 with some knowledge and patience. Now let's address proof coins specifically. If you have family members who collected coins, check their old proof sets. 1973 proof sets are common and worth $8 to $12 for a complete set. But individual high-grade proofs, especially PR69 Deep Cameo examples, can be worth $30 to $100 pulled out and graded separately. The term Deep Cameo means strong contrast between the frosted devices and mirror fields on a proof coin. Regular proofs show some contrast. Deep Cameo shows dramatic, beautiful contrast. This designation significantly increases value. Here's something about tunning on 1973 quarters. Some coins stored in certain albums or paper rolls developed attractive rainbow tunning over the past 50 years. Natural, attractive tunning can add 20% to 50% premium over a non-toned coin of the same grade. But ugly, splotchy, or artificial tunning reduces value. Never try to artificially tone a coin. Experts can tell, and it destroys value. Let me talk about authentication and grading. If you find a 1973 quarter you think might be valuable, should you send it for grading? Here's my rule. If you believe the coin is worth $50 or more in its current state, grading makes sense. Grading costs $20 to $40 depending on service level and turnaround time. Don't grade a coin worth less than the grading fee. For learning purposes, buy a few already graded 1973 quarters. Study them. See what MS65 looks like compared to MS67. Learn to recognize the Type A versus Type B reverse. This education pays off when you're searching through raw coins. Online resources help tremendously. The PCGS and NGC websites have population reports showing how many of each variety have been graded at each level. This tells you rarity. They also have price guides based on actual auction results. Use these tools to research before buying or selling. Here's a common mistake. People see any imperfection and think it's an error. A scratch is just damage, not an error. Wear from circulation isn't an error. True mint errors happen during production at the mint. They're consistent and repeatable across multiple examples. Learn the difference between damage and true errors. Social media and forums can help too. There are Facebook groups and online forums dedicated to error coins and varieties. Post clear photos of anything unusual you find. Experienced collectors will help identify it. The community is generally helpful and welcoming. Before we wrap up part 4, here's your homework. Find some 1973 quarters. If you have Denver Mint marks, check for Type B reverse. Look for doubled dies on both Philadelphia and Denver coins. Examine the overall condition. You might have a valuable variety sitting unnoticed in your collection. In part 5, we're jumping to 1980, another year with interesting errors and varieties. The 1980 quarter has some dramatic errors that sell for serious money. You definitely want to catch that episode. If this video helped you learn something new, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss parts 5 through 10. Comment below, do you have any 1973 quarters? Have you checked them for varieties? I read every comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 5, where we explore the 1980 Washington quarter and its hidden values. What's going on, coin collectors? Welcome back to part 5 of our series on valuable Washington quarters. We've covered 1965, 1966, 1967, and 1973 so far. Today we're diving into 1980, and this year is absolutely packed with errors and varieties that can make you serious money. The 1980 Washington quarter is fascinating because it represents the beginning of a new decade in American coinage. Production was high across multiple mints, but quality control issues led to some spectacular errors that are highly sought after today. Let's start with the basics. In 1980, quarters were produced at 3 facilities. Philadelphia made coins with no mint mark, just like always. Denver produced coins with a D mint mark, and San Francisco made proof coins only, marked with an S, exclusively for collector sets. Production numbers were massive. Philadelphia struck about 635 million quarters in 1980. Denver produced roughly 518 million. These huge numbers mean most 1980 quarters in circulated condition are worth exactly face value. You can spend them without losing money. But here's where things get exciting. The 1980 quarter, particularly from the Denver Mint, has some of the most dramatic and valuable errors of the entire Washington quarter series. We are talking errors that can turn a 25-cent coin into something worth hundreds of dollars. The most famous error is the 1980 D boldly doubled die reverse. This isn't a subtle variety. When you look at the reverse with even basic magnification, the doubling is obvious and dramatic. The words United States of America and quarter dollar show strong, clear doubling. It's not something you need to squint to see. How much is a 1980 D doubled die reverse worth? In average circulated condition with normal wear, you're looking at $150 to $300. In uncirculated condition, the value jumps to $400 to $700. The highest grade examples in MS66 or MS67 have sold at auction for over $1,500. This is serious money for what looks like a regular quarter at first glance. What makes this doubled die so valuable? 2 things. It's dramatic and relatively scarce. Not millions were made, but enough exist that finding one is actually possible if you search diligently through Denver quarters from 1980. Here's how to spot it. Look at the reverse under magnification. Focus on the letters in United States of America. You'll see what looks like a shadow or echo on each letter. The doubling is strongest on dollar at the bottom. If you see clear separation between the primary image and the doubled image, you might have the real deal. Now let's talk about another valuable 1980 era, broad strikes. A broad strike happens when the collar that normally contains the coin during striking isn't in place. The metal spreads out beyond the normal diameter. The coin comes out larger than it should be with a weird, unreaded edge. A 1980 broad strike quarter can sell for $50 to $150 depending on how dramatic it is and the overall condition. The more it's spread beyond normal size, the more valuable it becomes. These are eye-catching errors that display well in collections. Off-center strikes are also found on 1980 quarters. Remember, an off-center strike happens when the blank planchet isn't properly centered when the dies come down. Part of the design strikes off the coin entirely, leaving blank metal visible. A 5% to 10% off-center 1980 quarter isn't worth much, maybe $15 to $25, but 25% to 40% off-center becomes interesting, worth $75 to $150. A dramatic 50% off-center strike with the date still visible can bring $200 to $400 or more. Era collectors love dramatic off-center strikes because they're visually striking. Let me talk about the Philadelphia 1980 quarter for a moment. While it doesn't have the famous double die reverse that Denver has, it still offers opportunities. High-grade uncirculated examples have value. An MS-65 1980p quarter sells for $8 to $12. MS-66 brings $20 to $35. MS-67 examples jump to $75 to $150. And the rare MS-68 specimens have topped $1,000 at major auctions. The 1980 S-proof quarter is common in proof sets from that year. A standard 1980 S-proof in PR65 to PR68 grades is worth $3 to $8, not much above the cost of the original set. But here's the opportunity. PR69 deep cameo examples can sell for $15 to $35. The rare PR70 deep cameo quarters have sold for $100 to $300. Proofs can have errors too. Some 1980 S-proofs show doubling or other striking issues. A proof with a clear, identifiable error is worth substantially more than a regular proof. I've seen 1980 S error proofs sell for $150 to $400 depending on the type and severity of the error. Now let's discuss clipped planchet errors, which show up on 1980 quarters. A clipped planchet error happens when the blank is punched from a strip of metal that overlaps a previous punch, creating a missing piece. It looks like someone took a bite out of the coin. Small clips removing 5% or less of the coin are worth $10 to $25. Medium clips of 10% to 20% bring $30 to $75. Large dramatic clips removing 25% or more of the coin can sell for $100 to $250, especially if it's a curved clip showing the original metal strip edge. Here's an error type that's particularly valuable: wrong planchet errors. Sometimes a quarter gets struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination. A 1980 quarter struck on a nickel planchet or even a dime planchet is extremely rare and valuable. These can sell for $500 to $2,000 or more because they're so unusual and scarce. Multiple strike errors also exist for 1980. This happens when a coin gets struck 2 or even 3 times by the dies. Each strike creates overlapping images on the coin. A clear double-struck 1980 quarter with both images visible can sell for $200 to $500. Triple strikes are even rarer and more valuable. Let me share a hunting strategy that works. When searching through 1980 quarters, separate them by mint mark first. Put all the Denver coins aside because that's where the valuable double die reverse exists. Then examine each Denver quarters reverse under good magnification. Don't just glance. Actually study the lettering. Look for that telltale doubling on United States of America and quarter dollar. It takes time, but finding even one genuine double die makes hours of searching worthwhile. For all 1980 quarters, regardless of mint, check the overall condition. Pull aside anything that looks uncirculated with nice luster and minimal contact marks. These might be worth grading if they're truly exceptional. A coin you think might grade MS-67 or higher is worth the grading fee. Storage matters tremendously. If you find a potential error or high-grade coin, don't just toss it in a jar with other coins. Use individual holders or flips. Protect the surfaces. Every scratch or ding reduces the grade and the value. Handle coins by the edges, never touching the face. Here's a real success story. A friend of mine bought 10 rolls of 1980 D quarters from a bank for $250 total. He went through every single coin looking for the double die reverse. In the 8th roll, he found one. It graded MS-64 and sold at auction for $425. That one coin nearly doubled his entire investment. Now let's talk about authentication. The 1980D double die reverse is valuable enough that counterfeits and alterations exist. Some people try to artificially create doubling through postmint manipulation. Professional grading services can spot these fakes. If you think you have a genuine example worth serious money, get it authenticated and graded. Die cracks and die breaks also appear on 1980 quarters. As dies wear out, they develop cracks that appear as raised lines on finished coins. Minor cracks aren't worth much, but major die breaks, especially large cuds where a chunk of the die breaks away, can add $25 to $100 in value. Tunning can affect value on 1980 quarters too. Some coins stored in certain environments developed attractive rainbow tunning over the decades. Natural, eye-appealing tunning can add a premium, but ugly, dark, or splotchy tunning reduces value. Never attempt to artificially tone a coin. It always looks fake and destroys value. Let me address a common question. Should you save every 1980 quarter you find? The honest answer is no. Regular circulated 1980 quarters with wear are worth spending, but Denver quarters deserve closer examination for that double die. And any 1980 quarter in exceptional uncirculated condition is worth setting aside. Online resources help with identification. The PCGS CoinFacts website has detailed photos of the 1980D double die reverse. Study these photos, learn exactly what to look for, compare your coins to the authenticated examples. This education prevents mistakes and saves time. Forums and social media groups are valuable too. Post clear, well-lit photos of anything unusual you find. Experienced collectors will help identify it. The Era Coin community is generally helpful and supportive. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Here's something important about pricing. The values I'm quoting are based on recent auction results and dealer asking prices. Actual selling prices vary based on market conditions, buyer interest, and specific coin quality. Use multiple sources when researching values. Check completed eBay auctions, major auction house results, and dealer inventories. Grading makes a huge difference in value. A 1980D double die reverse in VF condition might sell for $150. The same variety in MS66 condition sells for $1,000 or more. That's why condition matters so much. Protect your finds from damage. Let me talk about proof sets briefly. If you or family members bought proof sets in 1980, check them. Most are worth $8 to $15 as complete sets. But if the quarter grades PR69 or PR70 Deep Cameo individually, it's worth pulling out and selling separately for maximum value. Before we finish part 5, here's your action plan. Find your 1980 quarters. Separate them by mint mark. Examine all Denver quarters for the double die reverse. Check Philadelphia and Denver coins for overall condition and any other errors. You might discover something valuable. In part 6, we are moving to 1981, another year with interesting varieties and errors. The 1981 S-Proof has 2 distinct types that many collectors don't even know about. You'll want to catch that episode. If you're learning from this series, hit that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss parts 6 through 10. We've got 5 more valuable quarters to cover. Comment below, have you found any 1980 quarters? Did you check them for the double die? I read every single comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 6, where we explore the 1981 Washington quarter. We're on part 6 of our 10-part series about valuable Washington quarters. In part 5, we explored the 1980 quarter and that amazing double die reverse. Today we're moving to 1981, and this year has a secret that most people completely miss. The 1981 Washington quarter is incredibly interesting, not because of circulation strikes, but because of what happened with the proof coins. There's a variety here that can multiply the value of your coin by 10 times or more if you know what to look for. Let's start with the basics. In 1981, quarters were produced at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia made about 601 million quarters with no mint mark. Denver produced roughly 575 million with a D mint mark, and San Francisco made proof coins only for collector sets marked with an S. Most 1981 quarters in circulated condition are worth face value. You can spend them without losing money. The mintage was high and billions of coins entered circulation over the years. They're common and easy to find. But here's where things get fascinating. The 1981 S-proof quarter exists in two completely different types, Type 1 and Type 2. The difference is in the mint mark itself, and this distinction can mean the difference between a $5 coin and a $75 coin. What's the difference? The Type 1 has a filled-in S mint mark. If you look closely under magnification, the top and bottom loops of the S are partially filled with metal. It looks blobby and indistinct. This happened because the mint mark punch used on the die wasn't as sharp or clear. The Type 2 has a clear, sharp S mint mark. The loops are well-defined and open. There's no filling or blobbiness. It looks crisp and professional. This came from using a better, sharper punch to apply the mint mark to the proof dies. Why does this matter so much? Type 2 is significantly scarcer than Type 1. The mint switched partway through the year from the filled S to the clear S. Most 1981 S-proof sets contain the Type 1. Finding a Type 2 is much harder. Here are the values. A 1981 S-Type 1 proof in standard PR65 to PR68 grades is worth $3 to $8. Nothing special. But a 1981 S-Type 2 proof in the same grades jumps to $40 to $75. In PR69 Deep Cameo grade, Type 2 specimens sell for $100 to $200. The rare PR70 Deep Cameo Type 2 quarters have topped $500 at auction. How do you tell them apart? You need magnification. A 10x loupe or magnifying glass works. Look at the S mint mark below Washington's ponytail on the obverse. On Type 1, the openings in the S are partially filled. On Type 2, they're completely clear and open. There are comparison photos online that make this very obvious once you know what to look for. Here's the thing that makes this exciting. Many people who bought 1981 proof sets back in the day have no idea about Type 1 versus Type 2. They just put the sets in a drawer and forgot about them. If you or your family members have old proof sets, checking the 1981 quarter could reveal a nice surprise. Now let's talk about circulation strike errors for 1981. While the Philadelphia and Denver quarters are common, errors do exist and they add significant value. The 1981 P double die obverse is one to watch for. Some quarters show doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. The doubling isn't as dramatic as some other years, but it's definitely there if you know where to look. A genuine 1981 P double die in circulated condition sells for $50 to $100. In uncirculated grades, the value jumps to $150 to $350. The 1981 D also has double die varieties, though they're less common and less well publicized than the Philadelphia version. Same thing to look for, doubling on the lettering on the obverse. These are worth similar amounts when found and authenticated. Off-center strikes appear on 1981 quarters from both mints. A 10% to 15% off-center strike sells for $20 to $40. A 30% to 45% off-center strike brings $75 to $175. A dramatic 50% or more off-center strike with the date still visible can sell for $200 to $400, depending on how striking it looks visually. Broad strike errors also exist for 1981. Remember, these happen when the collar doesn't contain the coin during striking, so it spreads out larger than normal. A 1981 broad strike quarter typically sells for $40 to $100, depending on how dramatic the expansion is and the overall condition. Clipped planchet errors show up too. Small clips removing less than 10% of the coin are worth $15 to $30. Larger clips taking out 20% or more can bring $50 to $150, especially if it's a curved clip showing the original metal strip edge clearly. Let me talk about condition and grade for regular 1981 quarters. A worn, circulated example is worth 25 cents, but uncirculated specimens have real value at high grades. An MS-64 1981P or 1981D quarter sells for $5 to $10. MS-65 brings $12 to $20. MS-66 jumps to $30 to $50. MS-67 examples sell for $75 to $150. The rare MS-68 specimens have topped $800 to $1,500 at major auctions because they're genuinely scarce in absolute perfect condition. Why are high grades scarce? Because these coins went straight into circulation. They got handled, dropped, scratched, and worn. Most people didn't save them because they seemed too common and recent. Finding one in absolutely pristine condition today is actually difficult. Here's a hunting strategy specifically for 1981. For circulation strikes, focus on condition. Pull aside any uncirculated examples with nice luster and minimal contact marks. These might be worth grabbing if they appear to be MS-66 or better. For proofs, the strategy is different. If you have 1981S proof sets, check that mint mark carefully under magnification. Determine if you have Type 1 or Type 2. If it's Type 2, consider having it graded separately from the set to maximize value. Storage is critical. Don't leave proof sets in the original packaging indefinitely if you want to preserve maximum value. The packaging can sometimes cause tunning or environmental damage over decades. Consider moving valuable proofs to individual holders designed for long-term storage. Let me share a real story. A collector bought a collection from an estate sale that included 20 proof sets from the 1980s. Going through them, they found 3 1981 S-Type 2 proof quarters, 2 graded PR69 Deep Cameo, and 1 graded PR70 Deep Cameo. The PR70 alone sold for $475. That's serious money from something that looked like a common proof set. Now let's discuss authentication and grading specifically for the 1981 S-Type 2. Because it's valuable, some dishonest people try to alter Type 1 coins to look like Type 2 by removing metal from the mint mark. Professional grading services can detect this tampering. If you think you have a genuine Type 2 worth significant money, get it professionally graded. The grading cost for a modern proof is typically $20 to $30, depending on service level and turnaround time. For a coin potentially worth $75 to $200, this investment makes sense. Don't grade a Type 1 worth $5. Only grade coins where the authentication and grade certification add value beyond the cost. Die cracks and die breaks appear on 1981 circulation strikes too. Minor cracks aren't worth much extra, but significant die breaks or large cud errors can add $20 to $75 in value, depending on how dramatic they are. Let's talk about something many collectors overlook: transitional errors. These are coins struck on planchets intended for different denominations. A 1981 quarter struck on a nickel or dime planchet is extremely rare and valuable. These can sell for $500 to $2,000 or more because they're so unusual. How would you identify a wrong planchet error? The coin would be the wrong weight and possibly the wrong size. A quarter on a dime planchet would weigh much less than the standard 5.67 grams. It would also be smaller in diameter. These errors are rare, but they do exist. Tunning affects value on both proofs and circulation strikes. Natural, attractive rainbow tunning can add premium value, but be careful. Some tunning is artificial or the result of environmental damage. Professional graders can usually tell the difference. Never try to artificially tone a coin. It always looks fake to experienced eyes. Here's important advice about selling. If you discover a valuable 1981 S-Type 2 proof or a circulation strike error, where should you sell it? Options include major auction houses, online marketplaces like eBay, coin dealers, and coin shows. Each has pros and cons. Auction houses get the highest prices but charge seller fees of 10% to 20%. eBay is accessible, but you compete with many sellers and deal with fees. Dealers offer convenience, but pay wholesale, not retail. Coin shows let you meet buyers directly, but require travel and time. For high-value coins, professional grading first is almost always worth it. A raw 1981 S-Type 2 might sell for $40. The same coin graded PR69 Deep Cameo by PCGS or NGC sells for $100 or more. The holder provides authentication and gives buyers confidence. Let me address a common mistake. Some people see the two different S styles on 1981 proofs and assume any difference makes it Type 2. That's not correct. Type 2 specifically means the clear, sharp S with completely open loops. Anything else is Type 1. Study comparison photos carefully before determining which type you have. Online resources help tremendously. The PCGS and NGC websites have detailed photos showing Type 1 versus Type 2 mint marks side by side. Study these images. Learn the difference clearly. This knowledge prevents mistakes when evaluating your own coins. Forums and Facebook groups dedicated to proof coins and varieties are valuable resources too. Post clear, close-up photos of your mint marks. Experienced collectors will help you identify which type you have. The community is generally helpful and supportive. Before we wrap up Part 6, let's recap the key points. The 1981 S-Proof quarter exists as Type 1 and Type 2, with Type 2 being much scarcer and more valuable. Circulation strikes can have doubled dies and various errors. High-grade uncirculated examples have value at MS66 and above. Here's your action step for this part. If you have any 1981 proof sets, get them out tonight. Look at that S mint mark under magnification. Determine if you have Type 1 or Type 2. You might be sitting on something worth 10 times what you thought. In Part 7, we're moving to 1983, a year with some absolutely wild and dramatic errors. We are talking multiple strikes, wrong planchets, and errors that sell for serious money. You definitely don't want to miss that episode. If this series is helping you learn about valuable quarters, smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you catch all 10 parts. Comment below, do you have any 1981 proof sets? Have you checked for Type 2? I love hearing about your discoveries. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Part 7, where we explore the fascinating 1983 Washington Quarter. What's up, coin hunters? Welcome back to Part 7 of our valuable Washington Quarters series. We've covered 1965, 1966, 1967, 1973, 1980, and 1981. Today we're diving into 1983, and this year is absolutely incredible for dramatic, eye-catching errors that can be worth serious money. The 1983 Washington Quarter is famous in the error coin community. This year produced some of the wildest, most spectacular minting mistakes of the entire modern quarter series. We are talking errors that are visually stunning and valuable. Let's start with the production basics. In 1983, quarters were made at Philadelphia and Denver for circulation, and San Francisco produced proofs only. Philadelphia struck about 673 million quarters with no mint mark. Denver made roughly 617 million with a D mint mark. Those are huge numbers, which means regular 1983 quarters in circulated condition are worth face value. But here's where things get exciting. The 1983 quarter, particularly from Philadelphia, has some of the most dramatic striking errors you'll ever see on modern coinage. These aren't subtle varieties you need magnification to spot. These are bold, obvious errors visible to the naked eye. The most famous and valuable 1983 error is the multiple strike. This happens when a coin gets stuck in the press and gets struck 2, 3, or even more times by the dies. Each strike creates overlapping images on the coin. The result is a chaotic, fascinating design that collectors absolutely love. A 1983 double-struck quarter where both images are clearly visible can sell for $200 to $500 depending on how dramatic it looks and the overall condition. If the second strike is rotated compared to the first, creating a really wild appearance, the value goes even higher. Triple-struck examples are rare and can bring $600 to $1,200 or more. What makes multiple strikes so valuable? Two things: they're dramatic and relatively scarce. Not many coins get stuck in the press long enough to be struck multiple times. When it happens, it creates something truly unique. Here's how to identify a multiple strike error. Look at the coin carefully. You'll see overlapping designs. Washington's profile might appear twice in different positions. The lettering shows multiple impressions. The date might be doubled or tripled. It's usually pretty obvious once you know what to look for. Now let's talk about another spectacular 1983 era, wrong planchet strikes. This happens when a quarter design gets struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. The most famous example is quarters struck on dime planchets. A 1983 quarter on dime planchet is extremely rare and valuable. The coin is smaller than a normal quarter and weighs much less. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams. A dime planchet weighs only 2.27 grams. If you find a 1983 quarter that looks too small and weighs way less than normal, you might have hit the jackpot. How much are wrong planchet errors worth? A 1983 quarter struck on a dime planchet can sell for $500 to $2,000 or more depending on condition and how well struck the design is. These are highly sought after by error collectors who specialize in dramatic mistakes. There are also reports of 1983 quarters struck on nickel planchets and even foreign planchets. Any wrong planchet error is rare and valuable. If you find something that doesn't seem right about the weight or size of a 1983 quarter, get it checked out by an expert. Off-center strikes are plentiful on 1983 quarters. This was a year when quality control seems to have slipped at the mints. A 15% to 20% off-center strike sells for $30 to $60. A 35% to 50% off-center strike with the date visible can bring $100 to $250. Really dramatic off-center strikes of 60% or more have sold for $300 to $600. What makes an off-center strike valuable? The date must be visible. If the date is missing because it's struck off the planchet, the value drops significantly. Collectors want to be able to identify the year clearly. Broad strike errors also appear frequently on 1983 quarters. Remember, a broad strike happens when the collar doesn't contain the coin during striking. The metal spreads out beyond normal diameter. The edge is wrong, and the coin is larger than it should be. A 1983 broad strike quarter typically sells for $50 to $125, depending on how dramatic the expansion is. The more it's spread out, the more valuable it becomes. These display well and look impressive in error collections. Clipped planchet errors show up on 1983 quarters too. A clip is when part of the blank is missing before striking. Small clips under 10% aren't worth much, maybe $15 to $30. But large clips removing 25% or more of the coin can sell for $75 to $200, especially if you can see the curved edge where the punching die overlapped. Let me talk about doubled dies for 1983. While not as dramatic as the striking errors, doubled die varieties do exist. The 1983 P doubled die obverse shows doubling on Liberty and In God We Trust. It's not super strong, but it's definitely there under magnification. A 1983 P doubled die obverse in circulated condition sells for $40 to $80. In uncirculated grades, the value jumps to $100 to $250. High-grade specimens in MS66 or MS67 can bring even more to variety collectors building complete sets. Now let's discuss regular circulation strikes and their values by grade. A typical worn 1983 P or 1983 D quarter is worth 25 cents, but condition matters for uncirculated examples. An MS64 1983 quarter sells for $5 to $8. MS65 brings $10 to $18. MS66 jumps to $25 to $45. MS67 examples sell for $60 to $120. The rare MS68 specimens have topped $700 to $1,200 at auction, because absolute perfection is genuinely scarce even for relatively recent coins. The 1983 S-proof quarter is common in proof sets from that year. Standard proofs in PR65 to PR68 are worth $3 to $6, but PR69 Deep Cameo examples jump to $12 to $25. The rare PR70 Deep Cameo quarters have sold for $75 to $150. Proof errors exist too. Some 1983 S-proofs show striking issues or doubling. A proof with a clear identifiable error can be worth $100 to $300 or more depending on the type and severity. Here's a hunting strategy specifically for 1983 errors. When you find 1983 quarters, really examine them closely. Look for any overlapping images that might indicate multiple strikes. Check if the coin seems the right size and weight. Look at the edge to see if it's a broad strike. For multiple strikes specifically, look at Washington's profile. Does it appear in two slightly different positions? Check the lettering. Does Liberty look weird or doubled in a strange way that's different from a normal doubled die? These clues indicate a multiple strike error. Storage is crucial for error coins. If you find a dramatic 1983 error, don't put it loose with other coins. Use an individual holder or flip immediately. Every scratch or ding reduces the value. Handle it by the edges only. Let me share a success story. A collector found a 1983 P triple struck quarter in a roll they bought from a bank. The coin was struck 3 separate times, each at a different rotation. It looked absolutely wild. They sent it for grading, and it came back MS63. Even at that moderate grade, it sold at auction for $875. That's incredible return from a 25-cent investment. Now let's talk about authentication for high-value errors, because 1983 errors can be worth serious money. Fakes and alterations exist. Some dishonest people try to create fake errors through post-mint manipulation. Professional grading services can detect these fakes through careful examination. If you think you have a genuine 1983 error worth $200 or more, get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC. The holder provides authentication and gives buyers confidence. The grading fee of $20 to $40 is worth it for a coin potentially worth hundreds. Die cracks and die breaks appear on 1983 quarters too. As dies wear out from striking thousands of coins, they develop cracks. These appear as raised lines on the finished coin. Minor cracks aren't worth much, but major die breaks, especially large cud errors where a chunk breaks off, can add $25 to $100 in value. A cud is particularly dramatic when it appears in a prominent location like across the date or through major design elements. A 1983 quarter with a large cud through the date might sell for $75 to $150 depending on size and condition. Let's address wrong planchet errors in more detail because they're so valuable. How would you know if you have one? First, weigh it. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams, a dime weighs 2.27 grams, a nickel weighs 5 grams. If your 1983 quarter weighs significantly different, investigate further. Second, measure the diameter. A normal quarter is 24.3 millimeters. A dime is 17.9 millimeters. If your quarter seems noticeably smaller, it might be on a dime planchet. These errors are rare enough that finding one would be a major discovery. Tunning can affect values on 1983 quarters. Natural, attractive tunning can add premium value, especially on uncirculated examples, but ugly, splotchy, or artificial tunning reduces value. Never try to artificially tone or clean a coin. It always damages value. Here's advice about selling 1983 errors, because these can be worth serious money. Choosing the right selling venue matters. For errors worth over $300, consider major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections. They have dedicated error coin collectors who will bid competitively. For errors worth $100 to $300, eBay can work well if you have good photos and an honest description. Make sure to show the error clearly in multiple photos. Be honest about condition. Overgrading or hiding flaws will only lead to returns and negative feedback. Local coin dealers are another option, but remember they need to buy at wholesale to resell at profit. You'll typically get 50% to 70% of retail value from a dealer. The convenience might be worth the lower price if you don't want to deal with online selling. Online resources help with identification. The Error Coin forums have extensive photo galleries of 1983 errors. Study these images. Learn what genuine errors look like. This education prevents mistakes and helps you spot the real deals. Facebook groups dedicated to error coins are active and helpful. Post clear photos of anything unusual you find. Experienced collectors will help identify it and give value estimates. The community enjoys helping newcomers learn. Before we wrap up part 7, let's recap the key points. The 1983 quarter is famous for dramatic errors, including multiple strikes, wrong planchets, off-center strikes, and broad strikes. These errors can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Regular high-grade uncirculated examples have value at MS66 and above. Here's your action step. Find your 1983 quarters tonight. Really examine them closely. Look for anything unusual. Check the weight if you have a scale. Look for overlapping images. You might discover a valuable error hiding in plain sight. In part 8, we're jumping ahead to 1993, a year that's surprisingly tough in high grades. The 1993 quarter might seem common, but finding perfect examples is genuinely difficult and valuable. You won't want to miss it. If you're enjoying this series, hit that like button. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you catch parts 8, 9, and 10. We've got 3 more valuable quarters to cover. Comment below. Have you found any 1983 errors? What's the wildest error you've ever discovered? I read every comment. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 8, where we explore the 1993 Washington quarter. Hey everyone, welcome back to part 8. We're more than halfway through our 10-part series on valuable Washington quarters. We've covered some amazing years so far, and today we're jumping to 1993. Now, you might be thinking, 1993, that's way too recent to be valuable. But you'd be surprised at what high-grade examples can bring. The 1993 Washington quarter is interesting because it represents the modern era of coin collecting. These coins are only about 30 years old, which seems very recent in numismatic terms. Most people assume anything this new can't be worth much. That assumption is wrong when it comes to top-grade specimens. Let's start with production numbers. In 1993, the Philadelphia Mint produced about 639 million quarters with no mint mark. The Denver Mint struck roughly 645 million with a D mint mark. San Francisco made proof coins only for collector sets, marked with an S. Those are massive production numbers, which means circulated 1993 quarters are everywhere. A worn 1993p or 1993D quarter in your pocket is worth exactly 25 cents. You can spend it without losing money. These coins are common in circulated grades and always will be. Billions entered circulation and they're still being used daily. But here's where things get interesting. Finding a 1993 quarter in absolutely perfect, pristine, gem uncirculated condition is surprisingly difficult. Why? Because most went straight into circulation. Banks ordered them, stores received them, and people spent them. Very few were intentionally saved by collectors because they seemed too common and too recent. This creates scarcity at the high end of the grading scale. An MS67 1993p quarter is genuinely scarce. An MS68 is rare. And MS69 specimens are incredibly rare, with only a handful certified by the major grading services. Let's talk values by grade for the 1993p Philadelphia quarter. An MS64 example sells for $3 to $5. MS65 brings $8 to $12. MS66 jumps to $20 to $35. Now here's where it gets exciting. MS67 examples sell for $75 to $150. MS68 quarters jumped to $300 to $600. And the extremely rare MS69 specimens have sold at auction for $2,000 to $3,500. Why such huge jumps in value? Population. According to PCGS and NGC population reports, there are thousands of 1993 P quarters graded MS65 and MS66, but only dozens graded MS68 and fewer than 10 graded MS69. That scarcity drives prices up dramatically for registry set collectors competing for the finest examples. The 1993 D Denver quarter follows similar patterns. MS64 is worth $3 to $5. MS65 brings $8 to $12. MS66 sells for $20 to $35. MS67 examples bring $60 to $120. MS68 jumps to $250 to $500. The rare MS69 specimens have topped $2,500 at major auctions. Now you might be wondering what makes the difference between MS67 and MS68. It comes down to tiny details that only experts can really evaluate consistently. We are talking about microscopic contact marks, the quality of the strike, the luster, and the eye appeal. At these high grades, perfection matters. An MS68 coin has virtually no contact marks visible even under magnification. The strike is sharp and complete on every detail. The luster is full and attractive. There are no distracting spots or discoloration. Finding all these qualities together in a 1993 quarter that spent zero time in circulation is genuinely difficult. Let me talk about the 1993 S-proof quarter. Standard proofs from 1993 proof sets in PR65 to PR68 grades are worth $3 to $7, not much above the original set price. But PR69 Deep Cameo examples sell for $15 to $30. The rare PR70 Deep Cameo quarters have sold for $100 to $250. The term Deep Cameo refers to the contrast between the frosted devices and mirror-like fields on proof coins. Early strikes from fresh dies show strong contrast. Later strikes, as the dies wear, show less contrast. Deep Cameo designation significantly increases value for proof coins. Now let's discuss errors on 1993 quarters. While not as dramatic or common as the 1983 errors we covered in Part 7, mistakes do exist and they add value. Off-center strikes appear on 1993 quarters from both mints. A 10% to 15% off-center strike sells for $25 to $50. A 30% to 40% off-center strike brings $75 to $175. A dramatic 50% or more off-center strike with the date visible can sell for $200 to $400, depending on eye appeal. Broad strike errors exist too. These happen when the collar doesn't contain the coin during striking. A 1993 broad strike quarter typically sells for $40 to $100, depending on how much it expanded beyond normal diameter and the overall condition. Clipped planchet errors show up occasionally. Small clips removing less than 10% are worth $15 to $35. Larger clips taking out 20% or more can bring $60 to $150, especially curved clips showing the original metal strip edge clearly. Double die varieties exist for 1993, though they're not as strong or well-known as some other years. Some 1993 P quarters show minor doubling on Liberty or the date. These aren't dramatic, but they can add $20 to $75 in value if authenticated. Die cracks and die breaks appear on 1993 quarters as dies wore out during production. Minor cracks aren't worth much, but major die breaks or significant cut errors can add $20 to $80 in value depending on size and location. Here's a hunting strategy for 1993 quarters. Don't focus on finding errors because they're relatively uncommon for this year. Instead, focus on condition. When you find 1993 quarters, look for uncirculated examples with full luster and minimal marks. What should you look for specifically? First, check if the coin has any wear at all. Even slight friction on the high points drops it from mint state to circulated. Second, examine the surfaces under good light. Count the contact marks. Fewer marks mean higher grade. Third, check the luster. Does it have a nice cartwheel effect when you tilt it under light? If you find a 1993 quarter that looks absolutely perfect with no visible marks, full luster, and sharp details, that's a candidate for professional grading. Don't just assume it's common because it's recent. The date matters less than the condition for coins this young. Storage is absolutely critical for high-grade modern coins. If you have uncirculated 1993 quarters, don't store them loose in bags or jars where they'll bang against each other. Every contact creates marks that reduce the grade. Use individual holders, coin flips, or proper albums. Handle coins by the edges only. Never touch the face of an uncirculated coin with your fingers. The oils and acids from your skin can cause spots and discoloration over time. Even a single fingerprint can drop a coin from MS-68 to MS-66, destroying hundreds of dollars in value. Let me share a real story. A collector went through 10 mint-sealed bags of 1993 P quarters, searching for the finest examples. Out of thousands of coins, they found 3 that looked potentially MS-68 quality. They submitted all 3 for grading. One came back MS-67, one MS-68, and one MS-69. The MS-69 sold for $2,800. That's incredible return for the time invested. Now let's talk about where these high-grade coins come from. Some came from mint sets, though not all mint set coins grade highly. Some were pulled from original wrapped rolls by collectors or dealers who recognized their quality. Some came from bank bags that were stored and never opened until recently. If you have access to original wrapped rolls from 1993, there's potential there. The coins at both ends of the roll might have some contact marks, but coins in the middle are sometimes pristine. It's worth carefully examining the contents. Authentication and grading are essential for high-value modern coins. A raw 1993 P quarter that looks perfect might sell for $10 to $20. The exact same coin in an MS-68 PCGS or NGC holder sells for $400 to $600. The third-party grading adds tremendous value through authentication and guaranteed grade. Grading costs for modern coins are typically $20 to $30, depending on service level and turnaround time. For a coin you believe might grade MS-67 or higher, this investment makes sense. Don't grade obvious MS-64 or MS-65 coins. Only submit coins with genuine MS-67 plus potential. Population reports are crucial for understanding value. Check the PCGS and NGC websites to see how many 1993 quarters have been graded at each level. Low populations at high grades explain high prices. This data helps you understand what you're looking for. Let's address tunning on 1993 quarters. Some coins stored in certain albums or environments developed light tunning over the past 30 years. Light, attractive tunning can add a small premium, but any dark, ugly, or splotchy tunning reduces value significantly. For modern coins, most collectors prefer brilliant, untoned examples. Never attempt to clean or improve a 1993 quarter. Cleaning always reduces value, even if you think you're making it look better. Grading services can detect cleaning and will note it, which kills the value. Leave coins exactly as you find them. Here's advice about selling high-grade 1993 quarters. For coins graded MS-67 or higher, consider major auction houses. They have the audience of serious collectors willing to pay strong prices for condition rarities. For MS-65 to MS-66 coins, eBay or direct dealer sales work fine. Timing can matter too. Prices for high-grade modern coins fluctuate based on collector demand and registry set competition. Sometimes waiting for the right buyer or auction can add 20% to 30% to your selling price. Don't feel pressured to sell immediately unless you need the money. Online communities help with education. Join forums and Facebook groups focused on modern coins. See what other collectors are finding. Learn grading standards by studying photos of certified coins. This knowledge helps you recognize quality when you find it. Before we wrap up Part 8, let's recap. The 1993 quarter seems common, but is genuinely scarce in grades MS67 and above. High-grade examples can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Focus on finding uncirculated examples with exceptional eye appeal and minimal marks. Here's your action step. Find your 1993 quarters tonight. Examine them carefully under good light. Look for uncirculated examples with full luster and minimal contact marks. You might have a high-grade specimen worth grading and potentially worth serious money. In Part 9, we are moving to 1995, another year that's surprisingly tough in top grades. The 1995 D particularly is a sleeper that many collectors overlook. You definitely want to catch that episode. If this series is helping you understand valuable quarters, smash that like button. Subscribe and hit notifications for Parts 9 and 10. We're almost done with this series. Comment below, do you have any 1993 quarters? Have you checked their condition carefully? I love hearing about your finds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Part 9, where we explore the 1995 Washington Quarter. What's going on, coin collectors? Welcome back to Part 9 of our 10-part series on valuable Washington quarters. We are almost at the end of this journey, and today we're talking about the 1995 quarter. This is a year that flies completely under the radar for most people, but it shouldn't. The 1995 Washington Quarter is one of the biggest sleepers in the modern quarter series. When I say sleeper, I mean a coin that most collectors ignore or undervalue, but smart collectors quietly accumulate because they know the truth about its scarcity in high grades. Let's start with the production numbers because they tell an important story. In 1995, the Philadelphia Mint produced about 1.004 billion quarters with no mint mark. That's over 1 billion coins, which sounds massive. But here's the interesting part. The Denver Mint only produced about 1.103 billion quarters with a D mint mark. Now you might be thinking those are still huge numbers, and you're right. In circulated grades, 1995 quarters are common. A worn 1995 P or 1995 D quarter in your pocket is worth exactly 25 cents. You can spend it without losing money. These coins are everywhere in circulation. But here's what makes 1995 special, particularly the Denver Mint coins. Despite the high mintage, very few were saved in pristine uncirculated condition. Most went directly into commerce. Banks distributed them, businesses received them, and people spent them immediately. Collectors in 1995 weren't saving these because they seemed too recent and too common. This created a situation where high-grade examples are genuinely scarce today. Finding a 1995 D quarter in MS67 or MS68 condition is surprisingly difficult. The coins exist in circulated grades by the millions, but gem uncirculated specimens are tough. Let's talk values by grade for the 1995 D Denver quarter, because this is where it gets exciting. An MS64 example sells for $4 to $7. MS65 brings $10 to $18. MS66 jumps to $25 to $50. Now watch what happens. MS67 examples sell for $75 to $150. MS68 quarters jump dramatically to $400 to $800. And the extremely rare MS69 specimens have sold at auction for $3,000 to $5,000. Yes, you read that correctly. A 1995 D quarter in MS69 condition has sold for over $3,000. That's a coin you could have pulled from a bankroll in 1995 for 25 cents, now worth more than many classic rare coins. By such extreme values at high grades, population scarcity. According to PCGS and NGC population reports, there are only a handful of 1995 D quarters graded MS69. We're talking single digits. Even MS68 examples number in the low dozens across both services combined. For a coin minted in the billions, that's remarkable scarcity at the top end. The 1995 P Philadelphia quarter follows similar patterns but isn't quite as strong. MS64 is worth $3 to $6. MS65 brings $8 to $15. MS66 sells for $20 to $40. MS67 examples bring $50 to $100. MS68 jumps to $250 to $500. MS69 specimens have topped $2,000 at major auctions. Still impressive values, but the Denver coins command higher premiums at the top grades. This is likely due to slightly lower survival rates in gem condition, though the exact reasons aren't completely clear. What matters is the market recognizes the scarcity and pays accordingly. Now let's talk about what separates an MS67 coin from an MS68. At these high grades, we're talking about microscopic differences that require expert evaluation. An MS68 coin has virtually perfect surfaces with no distracting marks even under strong magnification. The strike must be sharp and complete on every design element. The luster must be full, attractive, and original. Eye appeal matters tremendously. One tiny contact mark in the wrong place can drop a coin from MS68 to MS67, destroying hundreds of dollars in value. One weak spot in the strike can do the same. This is why finding these high-grade examples is so difficult, even among uncirculated coins. Let me talk about the 1995 S-proof quarter. Standard proofs from 1995 proof sets in PR65 to PR68 grades are worth $4 to $8. Nothing spectacular there, but PR69 deep cameo examples sell for $18 to $35. The rare PR70 deep cameo quarters have sold for $125 to $300. Deep cameo designation means strong contrast between the frosted devices and mirror fields. This dramatically improves eye appeal and commands premium prices. Not all proofs achieve deep cameo status, so it adds significant value when present. Silver proofs were also made in 1995 for special silver proof sets. These contain 90% silver, like the old pre-1965 quarters. A 1995 S silver proof in PR69 deep cameo sells for $25 to $50. PR70 examples have topped $200. These are worth more than standard clad proofs due to precious metal content and collector demand. Now let's discuss errors on 1995 quarters. While not known for spectacular errors like 1983, mistakes do exist, and they add value. Off-center strikes appear on both Philadelphia and Denver quarters. A 10% to 20% off-center strike sells for $30 to $60. A 35% to 50% off-center strike brings $100 to $225. A dramatic off-center strike of 60% or more with the date visible can sell for $250 to $500, depending on eye appeal and condition. Broad strike errors exist where the collar didn't contain the coin during striking. A 1995 broad strike quarter typically sells for $50 to $125, depending on how dramatic the expansion is beyond normal diameter. Clipped planchet errors show up too. Small clips removing less than 10% are worth $20 to $40. Larger clips taking out 25% or more can bring $75 to $175, especially if it's a curved clip showing the original strip edge. Double die varieties exist for 1995, though they're minor and not well publicized. Some quarters show slight doubling on letters or the date. These aren't dramatic like earlier years, but authenticated examples can add $30 to $100 in value, depending on strength and grade. Die cracks and die breaks appear as dies wore during production. Minor cracks add little value, but major die breaks or significant cut errors can add $25 to $100 depending on size, location, and how dramatic they look. Here's a hunting strategy specifically for 1995 quarters. Forget about searching circulated coins for errors. The real opportunity is finding high-grade, uncirculated examples. When you encounter 1995 quarters, immediately check if they're uncirculated with full luster. What should you look for? First, zero wear on the high points. Even slight friction drops it from mint state to about uncirculated. Second, minimal contact marks. Use a magnifying glass and count the marks you can see. Fewer marks mean higher grade potential. Third, strong luster with nice cartwheel effect under light. Fourth, sharp strike with all details complete. If you find a 1995 D quarter that looks absolutely pristine with maybe one or two tiny marks, that's a serious candidate for professional grading. Don't dismiss it because the date seems too recent. The scarcity is real at high grades. Storage is absolutely critical. If you have uncirculated 1995 quarters, store them individually in proper holders. Don't let them touch other coins. Every contact creates marks. Handle only by the edges, never touching the faces. Oils from your skin cause spots over time. Let me share a success story. A dealer bought an original mint-sealed bag of 1995 D quarters several years ago. They carefully examined every coin, searching for the finest examples. Out of thousands of coins, they found 5 that looked potentially MS68 quality. They submitted all 5 for grading. 2 came back MS67, 2 MS68, and 1 MS69. That single MS69 coin sold for $4,200 at auction. That's incredible return on investment. Now let's talk about where to find these coins today. Original wrapped rolls from 1995 occasionally appear at coin shows or online. If you can buy original bank-wrapped rolls, there's potential for finding high-grade coins inside. The coins in the middle of the roll are most likely to be pristine. Mint sets from 1995 are another source. The US Mint sold official mint sets containing uncirculated examples from each mint. Not all mint set coins grade highly due to handling during packaging, but some are exceptional. If you have old mint sets, checking the quarters is worthwhile. Authentication through professional grading is essential for high-value examples. A raw 1995 D quarter that looks perfect might sell for $15 to $25. The same coin in an MS68 PCGS or NGC holder sells for $500 to $800. The third-party certification adds tremendous value through guaranteed authenticity and grade. Grading costs are typically $20 to $35 for modern coins depending on service level. For a coin with genuine MS67 or higher potential, this investment makes complete sense. Only submit coins that truly look exceptional. Don't waste money grading obvious MS64 or MS65 coins. Population reports guide value understanding. Check PCGS and NGC websites regularly to see current populations at each grade level. As more coins get graded, populations change. This affects market values. Low populations at high grades explain and justify high prices. Let's address tunning. Some 1995 quarters stored in certain environments developed light tunning over the past 30 years. Very light, attractive tunning can add a small premium, but any dark, spotted, or ugly tunning significantly reduces value. Most collectors prefer brilliant, untoned examples for modern coins. Never clean a coin. This cannot be emphasized enough. Cleaning always reduces value, even if you think you're improving appearance. Grading services detect cleaning and note it on the label, which destroys value. Leave coins exactly as found. Here's selling advice for high-grade 1995 quarters. For coins graded MS67 or higher, use major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Great Collections. They reach serious collectors willing to pay strong prices for condition rarities. For MS65 to MS66 coins, eBay or dealer sales work fine. Timing matters with modern coins. Prices fluctuate based on registry set competition and overall collector demand. Sometimes waiting for the right auction or buyer adds 20% to 40% to your selling price. Don't feel rushed unless you need money immediately. Online communities provide valuable education. Join forums and groups focused on modern coins. Study photos of certified high-grade examples. Learn what MS67 and MS68 actually look like. This knowledge helps you recognize quality when searching. Before we finish Part 9, let's recap. The 1995 quarter, especially from Denver, is genuinely scarce in grades MS67 and above despite high mintages. Top-grade examples sell for hundreds to thousands of dollars. The opportunity is finding uncirculated examples with exceptional quality. Here's your action step. Find all your 1995 quarters tonight. Examine them under good light with magnification. Look for uncirculated examples with minimal marks and full luster, especially Denver coins. You might discover a high-grade specimen worth serious money. In Part 10, our final episode, we're covering the 1996 quarter. This year includes the famous 1996 W West Point issue, one of the most sought-after modern quarters. You absolutely don't want to miss the finale. If you've enjoyed this series, hit that like button, subscribe and turn on notifications for Part 10. Comment below, do you have 1995 quarters? Have you checked them carefully for high grades? I love hearing your stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in Part 10, the final episode, where we explore the 1996 Washington quarter. Hey coin collectors, welcome to Part 10, the final episode of our 10-part series on valuable Washington quarters. We've covered 9 incredible years so far, and today we're finishing strong with 1996. This year is absolutely special because it includes one of the most sought-after modern quarters ever made, the 1996 W. The 1996 Washington quarter is unique in modern coinage history. This year marks the only time a W mint mark appeared on circulating type Washington quarters. It's a story of celebration, rarity, and values that can reach into the hundreds of dollars even for standard grades. Let's start with the regular production quarters. In 1996, the Philadelphia Mint produced about 925 million quarters with no mint mark. Denver struck roughly 906 million with a D mint mark. San Francisco made proof coins only for collector sets, marked with an S. These are all common in circulated grades and worth face value when worn. But then there's the 1996 W quarter. This is completely different and incredibly special. The 1996 W quarter was struck at the West Point Mint to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the West Point Mint. Only about 62,000 were made. That's not a typo. Just 62,000 quarters with the W mint mark compared to hundreds of millions of regular quarters that year. Here's what makes it even more interesting. These 1996 W quarters were never released into circulation. You will not find them in your pocket change. They were included exclusively in special 1996 United States Mint uncirculated coin sets. If you didn't buy one of those sets in 1996, you didn't get a 1996 W quarter. This creates tremendous scarcity. With only 62,000 minted and all going to collectors in special sets, the 1996 W is the key date of modern Washington quarters. Every serious collector wants one for their set. Let's talk values for the 1996 W quarter. In MS63 grade, it sells for $30 to $50. MS64 brings $45 to $70. MS65 jumps to $60 to $100. MS66 sells for $80 to $140. MS67 examples bring $150 to $250. MS68 quarters sell for $300 to $600, and the rare MS69 specimens have topped $2,000 at major auctions. Even in lower uncirculated grades, the 1996 W commands significant premiums over regular 1996 quarters. This is purely a function of that tiny mintage of 62,000 compared to the millions of collectors who want one. Now you might be wondering if you have a 1996 W quarter. Here's how to check. Look below Washington's ponytail on the obverse for the mint mark. If you see a tiny W, you have the valuable one. If you see nothing, it's Philadelphia. If you see a D, it's Denver. The W is small but clearly visible with the naked eye. Where would you find a 1996 W quarter today? They come from those original 1996 mint sets that were sold by the US Mint. If your parents or grandparents collected coins and bought mint sets in the 1990s, check them carefully. You might discover a 1996 W sitting unnoticed in an old set. These sets originally sold for around $8 to $12. Today, a 1996 mint set in original packaging sells for $50 to $100 or more, driven almost entirely by the value of that single 1996 W quarter inside. Some 1996 W quarters were removed from the sets years ago and have been circulating in the collector market. You can buy them individually from dealers or at auctions. Make sure you're buying from reputable sources because counterfeits exist given the high values. Let me talk about errors on the 1996 W quarter. Because these were specially made for collector sets, errors are extremely rare. Quality control was higher for these coins, but a few errors have been discovered over the years. A 1996 W quarter with a clear minting error like an off-center strike or double die would be extremely valuable, potentially worth $1,000 to $5,000 or more depending on the error type and severity. These are genuinely rare because so few were made and quality standards were high. Now let's discuss the regular 1996P and 1996D quarters. In circulated condition, they're worth 25 cents, but high-grade uncirculated examples have value, following patterns we've seen with other 1990s quarters. An MS64 1996P quarter sells for $3 to $6. MS65 brings $8 to $15. MS66 jumps to $18 to $35. MS67 examples sell for $50 to $100. MS68 quarters bring $200 to $400. The rare MS69 specimens have topped $1,500 at auction. The 1996D follows similar values. MS64 is worth $3 to $6. MS65 brings $8 to $15. MS66 sells for $18 to $35. MS67 examples bring $45 to $90. MS68 jumps to $175 to $350. MS69 specimens have sold for $1,200 to $2,000. The 1996 S-Proof quarter comes in both clad and silver versions. Standard clad proofs in PR65 to PR68 are worth $4 to $8. PR69 Deep Cameo examples sell for $15 to $30. PR70 Deep Cameo quarters have topped $100 to $200. The 1996 S Silver Proof is worth more. PR69 Deep Cameo Silver Proofs sell for $20 to $40. PR70 examples have brought $150 to $350. The silver content plus Deep Cameo designation plus perfect grade creates strong demand. Let's talk about errors on regular 1996 quarters. Off-center strikes appear occasionally. A 15% to 25% off-center strike sells for $35 to $75. A 40% to 55% off-center strike brings $125 to $275. Dramatic off-center strikes with the date visible can reach $300 to $600. Broad strike errors exist where the collar didn't contain the coin. A 1996 broad strike quarter typically sells for $50 to $130, depending on how much it expanded beyond normal diameter and overall condition. Clipped planchet errors show up too. Small clips under 10% are worth $20 to $45. Larger clips removing 25% or more can bring $80 to $200, especially curved clips showing the original metal strip edge. Double die varieties exist for 1996, though they're not dramatic or well known. Some quarters show minor doubling on letters or design elements. Authenticated examples can add $25 to $80 in value depending on strength. Die cracks and die breaks appear as production dies wore out. Minor cracks add little value. Major die breaks or cud errors can add $30 to $120 depending on size and location. Here's a hunting strategy for 1996 quarters. First, if you have access to old mint sets from family members or estate purchases, check them immediately for the 1996 W. That's the big prize, worth hundreds of dollars even in average grades. For regular circulation quarters, focus on finding high-grade uncirculated examples. When you encounter 1996 quarters, check for full luster and minimal contact marks. Pristine examples are candidates for professional grading. Storage is crucial, especially for the 1996 W if you're lucky enough to own one. Keep it in a proper holder, never loose with other coins. Handle only by edges. Protect it from environmental damage like humidity or temperature extremes. Let me share a real story. An elderly woman brought a box of old coin sets to a dealer. Among them was a 1996 mint set still sealed in original packaging. She had paid $8 for it in 1996 and forgot about it. The dealer explained the 1996 W quarter inside was worth over $100. She was shocked that something so recent could be valuable. The set sold for $135 because of that one special quarter. Authentication is important for 1996 W quarters because they're valuable. Counterfeits exist. Some people have altered regular 1996 quarters by adding fake W mint marks. Professional grading services can detect these fakes through careful examination. If you have what you believe is a genuine 1996 W quarter, getting it graded by PCGS or NGC makes sense. The grading fee of $20 to $35 is worthwhile for a coin worth $60 to $250 or more depending on grade. The authenticated holder provides buyer confidence and maximizes value. Population reports show interesting data for 1996 W quarters. Because only 62,000 exist total, populations are low at every grade level. Even common grades like MS-65 and MS-66 have relatively small populations compared to regular issues. This supports strong pricing across all grades. Let's talk about completing a collection. If you've been following this entire series and checking all 10 years we covered, you now know where the value hides in Washington quarters from 1965 through 1996. The key takeaways: errors can make common dates valuable, condition is everything for modern coins, and special issues like the 1996 W command premiums due to low mintage, regardless of age. Selling advice for 1996 W quarters: these have strong demand, so you have options. Major auction houses work well for high-grade examples. eBay reaches many buyers if you have good photos and honest descriptions. Coin dealers will buy them, though at wholesale prices below retail. For regular high-grade 1996P and 1996D quarters, follow the same selling strategies we discussed in earlier parts. MS-67 and higher grades deserve major auction exposure. Lower grades can sell through eBay or to dealers. Online resources help with research. Check current auction results for 1996 W quarters to see actual selling prices. Population reports show rarity at each grade level. Forums and groups provide community knowledge and support. Before we wrap up this final part, let's do a complete series recap. We covered 10 Washington quarter dates: 1965, 1966, 1967, 1973, 1980, 1981, 1983, 1993, 1995, and 1996. Each has unique characteristics, errors, or condition rarity that creates value beyond face value. The lessons apply broadly to coin collecting. Know what you're looking for, understand grading, protect your finds, research values, and use professional services when appropriate. Here's your final action step for this series. Tonight, go through all your quarters, check every date we covered, look for errors on the early years, Examine condition on the 1990s dates. Search old family collections for that 1996. You now have the knowledge to spot valuable quarters that others miss. This concludes our 10-part series on valuable Washington quarters. I hope you learned something useful that helps you discover hidden treasures in your own collection or pocket change. If you enjoyed this series, please give this final video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for future coin content. I'll be creating more series covering other denominations and coin types. Comment below with your biggest discovery from this series or any questions you still have. I read and respond to every comment. Thank you so much for watching all 10 parts. Happy hunting, and may you find valuable quarters everywhere you look. This is the end of the series, but your coin collecting journey is just beginning. Good luck out there.